to the ashes of the Imperium.
Hello and welcome to Ashes of the Imperium. My name is Dan, and as ever, I'm joined by the wonderful Max. How are you, Max?
Hi, Dan. I'm good, thanks. You all right?
I'm living the dream. We are fast approaching the end of the year, and today's episode is going to be all about 2024, our reflections on the year just gone, and also maybe some hopes and dreams for 2025. Feels weird to be saying 25, right?
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. Everything's happening too fast.
I know. I don't like it. The world is changing. I did see recently like a meme that said something like, Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and all that music, Sum 41, all that music we listened to when we were teenagers, is as old now to the teenagers of today as, I don't know, like ABBA and the Bee Gees was when we were growing up. Or,
so
the maths is probably slightly off there, but like it's something along those lines.
Yeah. You're not a sports person, are you? But
Go Sports Ball!
I heard something similar with the 1966 World Cup being.
I'm aware that happened, Max. I'm not that much of a sports Luddite. But thank you.
It was a sport called football, Dan.
Okay, soccer ball. Soccer ball.
But anyway, that was a similar thing. That was as far away in 1987 when I was born as whatever. It's all scary. Like stuff that felt like ancient history is now actually 1995. But there we are.
And from ancient history all the way to the grimdark far future of the 41st millennium, we'll get back on track. So today we are going to talk about kind of like the releases and stuff like that's happened. So we've had a really interesting year, I think, from a hobby release perspective.
Up and down, some massive highs, some quite funny lows.
Okay, and
there's been some moments, hasn't there?
There has been some moments for sure. I think it's been a really cool year.
Yeah,
we've seen some really interesting, I suppose, like reimaginations, like re-releases.
Yes, yeah, and hey, looking forward to next year. Wow, have we got some beautiful reimaginings to come, right?
For sure. So things like, Dark Angels, we've had Belial, Asmodai, from the Eldari, we've got things like Striking Scorpions, even like Space Marine Scouts got a glad.
I was just going to say the Scout Squads, Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Not to be missed.
Yeah, just tidy updates to classics, I think.
Yeah, we've also had a lot of, some of the releases have just been releases of stuff you could previously get in boxes, so like the Leviathan Eurotyrant, the Bliss Dreadnought, etc. But we have had some absolutely phenomenal kind of standout minis, whether it's the single characters or even squads. And we're going to be talking a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about like our top 3 40k ones and our top 3 non-40k, as well as a few bits and bobs.
Mm-hmm.
But we have also released a few episodes on Codex reviews. And is there any of those that kind of stood out in your mind? Models aside, just in terms of what was cool for you as a codex to get?
Yeah, sure. I would put the codexes that we've had so far in a few different categories. I think that there are those like the Chaos Space Marine book that have some absolute standout detachments and some very, very solid rules. But then there's also some detachments in there that just feel like a bit filler, if you know what I mean. That I can't see them getting that much playtime and that kind of stuff. There's also just those really wacky, weird codexes like the Imperial Agents one we saw. But then, my absolute favourite of the year was the Tau book. Now, it had less detachment choices than something like the Space Marine Codex or the Chaos Codex, or, the Admech Codex if we go a bit further back. But every single one of those detachments is, in my eyes, an absolute banger. Like, you could get genuine playtime out of each one, and they all feel sufficiently different as well. There's no wastage in that book, which I really, really like. You get your value for money from it, and some fun, interesting rules as well, and the opportunity to play a lot of different armies, which I think is very good for an army like Tau, where ostensibly they are a shooting army, but there's a lot of flavors of shooting in Tau, and I think the book makes the most of those.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
And of course, it came with a massive update to Kroot as well, didn't it? A whole new range of models for the Kroot, and I've gone, as we'll talk about with hobby resolutions for next year. I've gone big on my Kroot.
Big on your Kroot.
Yeah,
big
exactly.
On your Tau overall.
What do you think? Do you think that's a fair pick?
Yeah, I think that's a good pick for sure. I suppose like as an overall range refresh, the Tau release was really good. I really liked it. Really cool to see all those Kroot models. Of course, lots of Kroot fanatics out there, converting various bits and bobs. So it was nice to get some actual official models. For me, it was the orcs. So in terms of flexibility, models as well, you had this gorgeous big mech, with the kind of exposed mechanical arm. He had these kind of pistons and joints coming out of his arm, and
the more recent orc releases, they've got their nastiness back, haven't they?
They have.
They're a bit meaner.
They are. I feel like they're less comic reliefy. They're less kind of like, slightly awkward football hooligans and more these kind of technology crazed monsters.
Killing machines,
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so not just the models, although obviously the models are cool, but also, fun lore. All the clans are very, very different. And from a hobbyist perspective, what a wonderful army to use for a whole bunch of conversion opportunities.
Had some of the best lore in that book as well. I loved the story with the big mech like coordinating all the snotlings to fight against the Votan who were invading, and they had some good stories in there as well. That was my number 2.
That was your number 2, was it?
Interesting. Yeah, it was.
I still maintain that if I was going to do one army, if I was only allowed to do one 40k army ever, it would be orcs.
Would it really? That's interesting.
Yeah, but I think that's because you could then have access to so much of the range.
Sure, yeah.
And you could do like you could do a full vehicle army and not buy a single orc vehicle. You could also do like a full infantry army and have it as like savage orcs, converted beast snaggers and that kind of thing, infantry and cavalry perhaps, but with no vehicles. And you can do everything in between. You could do like a full flying army. I love, you know me, and listeners will know me. I love an army that you can just lean aggressively into a theme. And I feel like orcs do that very well.
Well, I remember the list I made for that episode was the mega knobs in hyper armor, or whatever they're called, like 2k points of them.
Mega knobs in hyper armor.
Whatever.
Surely there be hyper knobs if they're in hyper armor. Surely they'd be in mega armor, Max. That's why they're called mega knobs.
There we go, mega knobs.
Yeah, well done.
Them
in the Bully Boys detachment.
Yes, which is really good. Yeah, exactly. Just an example of what you were saying about really being able to lean into a theme. That was a very good book.
So would you say the Kroot were like your biggest, if I asked you the question of like what was your favorite release overall, like a range refresh or a kind of package release of whether it's books, models, whatever, would you say the Kroot were there, or was there something else that stands out?
No, Kroot were it for me for sure.
Yeah,
from last year. Yeah, I was really excited about them. I wasn't expecting to be. I was like, okay, Kroot are cool. But as soon as I saw the models and got my hands on some, I was like, okay, yeah, no, these are brilliant. Like a whole army of these would look mega. So
and indeed they do, as you can confirm, right?
Yes, absolutely. It keeps growing. They keep making them cheaper, and I keep having to buy more.
Those damn points costs changes.
So many.
I think for me, the overall kind of favorite release would be the Horus Heresy Solar Auxilia range.
Very good, wasn't it?
Very cool. Very cool range in general. Before when it was resin, it was inaccessible to everyone. It was it was all resin from Forge World. A lot of it was out of stock and stuff like that. Whereas the re-release of it all in plastics and the kind of the new models and the tanks. I love a good tank.
Yeah, similar with the Heresy Admech as well, right? That was a good plastic update.
Well, yes, Max, although obviously it's Heresy Mechanicum because they weren't the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Okay, well, look, this
at
is
the time, were they?
I don't know enough.
We don't want people writing in again, correcting us on our lore. For a narrative podcast, we do need to get our narrative right.
Pilgrim hats, that's what we got wrong.
Pilgrim hats! Oh dear, so good. I can't even remember what they're meant to be called now. Right, let's skip to our top 3 40k single models / unit release. Max, you go first.
Okay, so at number 1, I have the Kroot Warshaper.
Is this in order?
Yes, this is in order. Yeah.
Okay. This is your top one.
Yeah, my top one is the Kroot Warshaper.
Okay. You're not going to count down like a normal countdown would,
No, I've just gone straight in at the top.
You've gone straight in. I bet you've already eaten your advent calendar chocolates as well, haven't you? You little rascal.
So yes, number 1. I'm sticking to this, by the way.
Okay, no, you crack on.
It's the Kroot Warshaper, who's their HQ. He's like the boss. He's the Space Marine captain of the Kroot. Do you know the model? Is he kind of like Rambo? He's got holding he's got a few weapon options. He can hold his like stave up above his head, or he has like a a lasso, and then in his other hand he has his bow, basically his big bow.
Yes, yeah,
And
I
he's
think
sort of standing there triumphantly, like
he is. He's kind of on a tactical rock. Yeah, as you say, he comes with a bow, and he's got
Yeah.
this kind of thing that a little bit reminds me of Jane Zar's weapon. It's a kind of shuriken kind of boomerang thing, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's
Or
very
he has
cool.
or he has a big kind of double-ended, kind of
classic
quarterstaff
kind of
glaive
Kroot,
thing.
yeah.
So I've made 3 of him for my army.
Oh, wow.
And what I really like about him as well is you can do some nice subtle arm swaps to make 3 very different looking characters. So I've got one that's kind of set up as he comes in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Then another one is kind of holding a rifle kind of, by the barrel down the middle with the sling nice and loose, and he looks kind of like at ease and just sort of surveying the landscape with like a optic, that kind of thing. And so he's, because obviously one downside of a limited range when it gets updated is you build an army out of it, there's going to be a lot of unit repetition. So just very subtle swaps. I've got 3 very different looking characters across them as well. So I like each one. So he's a real favourite.
That's very cool.
So there's my number 1 pick. What's yours?
I think my I'm going to count down. My third place pick is Celestine Sacrosanct Aveline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really cool model. It's a really cool kind of centerpiece model. My only regret is that I don't have a Sisters of Battle army, so I can't use it. Right?
Well, yeah,
I could get it. I could paint it as a display model.
A painting project.
It's also on a display base, I think. So
Mm.
you'd have to work out a way to maybe trim down the base and put it on a 32 or even a 40. I think she's on like a 50. But you know the one I mean, the one whose sword is exploding in a fire shaped like a fleur-de-lis.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, amazing
it's
model.
just such a cool model, and it makes me. I've been thinking about doing a Sisters of Silence army for Heresy and basing it off all the Sisters of Battle models. Because
that would be very good, because the Sisters of Silence are very limited.
Yeah, they just have 5 models and a couple of characters.
Yeah.
But she's my my sort of third pick. And maybe I need to watch this space. Maybe it'll be a Heresy project or a 40k project for next year.
That'd be good. That'd be really good.
What's your second pick?
Okay, my second pick. So this is where we'll meet.
This is where we will intersect. Yeah.
So my second pick is the Krutox Rampagers, again from the Kroot. The kind of line breaker.
Look like they're riding big gorilla things.
Yes, exactly. But what I love about these is the sort of dynamism in the poses. Like one of them is 3 feet off the ground, sort of balancing on his front knuckle. Another one's fully rearing up, and then another one's just in like full gallop. And each of the riders look like they're having such a laugh on them as well. They're just
having a jolly old time.
They're just wonderfully dynamic models. And again, I've had to make a lot of them for my army. And just little weapon swaps here and there, you can get quite a different look across, what is ostensibly 3 3 individual models. That's all you get. There's only 3 unique ones, but apart from the poses of the actual mounts, there's a lot you can do with the riders to kind of tweak them and make them look individual. So a really fun kit to work with. They go together beautifully. Like you might expect with those kind of big fleshy muscly models that there'd be a lot of kind of awkward joins and stuff, but they've just been so well sliced that all the joins are kind of really seamless, and they're a lot of fun to put together.
I feel like models these days, like those ones, when there's 3 kind of unique poses. So being able to then convert them differently, I suppose, like it's all right for if you've got like a character like your Shaper, because it's kind of just like you tilt the head around, or you snip his hand off the wrist and kind of do an arm swap or something like that. That's all well and good, and it's great that they've got that flexibility. But something like those kind of Krutox riders, it must be quite difficult to make them look unique and have a bit of variety. Yeah,
the main chunk of the model is obviously the Krutox, and there's only 3 poses of that. But what I've been able to do is give the riders a lot of variation in their weaponry. So 1 unit of 3 is stock, another one, a lot more of them have guns out and are shooting. Some of them, the melee weapons that you get in there I've swapped out for other melee weapons, so they look different enough.
Okay,
across.
okay.
Yeah,
I can get on board with that.
Yeah. So, how about you? What was your second pick?
My second pick was Lematis, another single character. What a cool refresh of the model, and a very different one as well. Not just let's like Fugan is going to be, he's been revealed. He hasn't been released yet, has he? He's been revealed.
Yeah.
He is just a modern version of the original
refresh,
model,
yeah.
which is great because it's a phenomenal model.
Astaroth from the same release is just a bit of a
much more of the same, right? Whereas I just love that kind of that pose. He's kind of like stepping down some stairs or a tactical rock or something, and he's kind of like got his arms out. He just looks like he's
challenging,
screaming,
come and get it,
black rage. Yeah, I love it. It's just a very cool model.
Good
and obviously
model.
Being a Blood Angels fan kind of speaks to me a little bit.
I've seen some beautiful paint jobs of him as well. It looks like he paints up really nicely. There's not an over amount of detail on there. There's not an excessive amount of detail on there. There's just enough, that kind of sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems with a lot of models for me these days is all the detail. Let's take Celestian Sacrosanct Aveline. What a mouthful. You just got like filigree and fleur-de-lis details and bits and bobs, and I think that's why I've been so attracted to Heresy this year, is because it's very simple to paint, and that's that's really appealing to me as a hobbyist that doesn't as someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of like technical skill in painting, but I am quite easily able to kind of apply. I call them gimmicks, but you could say techniques. So like I'm okay with an airbrush, and I could do oil pin washing and things like that. And so if you just layer on those effects, a model can look okay. Whereas I'm not very good at like fine detail.
No, me
like
neither.
gubbins, painting pouches and tassels and things like that. So if a model has loads of those, I'm immediately just like, ugh.
Well, I've made a very conscious decision to paint less of the details on the armies that I'm working on. And, we can talk about that later when we talk about resolutions for next year. But I just, if I'm painting 50 of the guys from 3 feet away on the table, I don't think you're going to notice if I haven't painted every single trim or pouch or dangly bit. Like, I'm just trying to be a bit kinder to myself and save some time, if you know what I mean.
That tracks. That's a good ethos to have when approaching the hobby. So tell me about your number one, but it's not your number one because you've done it the wrong way around. But anyway, tell me about your number one.
My number 3 pick is the Deathwing Knights. Yeah, because the new Terminators themselves are beautiful, and then what I really like is the Dark Angel specific elements that they've been able to add into the Deathwing Knight kit. I think it's a really solid upgrade on what was already a pretty cool looking kit. I love the helms. I love the kind of knightly helms. The weapon options look great. I think it's a really. I'm hopeful that we'll get something similar for Wolfguard. Maybe in the future. I think it's a nice indicator of
for Death Guard.
No, Wolfguard for Space Wolves.
Guard.
Yeah, Wolfguard for Space Wolves. Those kind of chapter specific.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
because we've had new Sanguinary Guard.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you said Death Guard there, and I was like,
no,
dude, you've got unique Death Guard Terminators. What are you talking about?
In 2 flavors, yeah.
Stop being greedy.
No.
I mean that whole Deathwing assault box was brilliant.
Yeah, all the new models in it were great.
Yeah, the Terminators are cool, Belial, and some Deathwing Knights.
The book was a bit of a letdown. But
I think it was just a bit thin on the ground, wasn't it? It was our first
I think so.
supplement. But I think, if memory serves, haven't they just got a new detachment through the advent calendar?
Yeah, I mean everyone's getting one, aren't they? I've not taken a look at the Dark Angels one yet, but
no, I think today's was Chaos Knights, so I'm very much looking forward to having a peruse on that and seeing what that's good. I think that's it's a quite a cool way to these detachments. They're always quite a cool way to inspire you about your army, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's been a great thing they're doing this year. Okay, so what was your final pick?
So my final one is a unit this time, and it is the Tempestus Aquilans.
Okay, very good.
The jump pack kind of kill team dudes, jump pack scions. Purely just because, I just love Elysian drop troops. And I would absolutely love to do a full army of Tempestus Aquilans, maybe with some, 3D printed Elysian heads or something. And just, that would be so cool. It's just they're gorgeous models. There's a huge amount of variety. Obviously, they got a cute little robot thing as well, which always helps.
Yeah. They're beautifully posed, great poses, aren't they? Really, really good poses. Not over the top.
No, and I think you could Like you could quite easily do an army with some Aquilans and Valkyries, and then some Scions and Chimera or Tarox, vehicles or something like that, and it would just be like a really like aesthetically cohered army.
Yeah, they work perfectly together for sure.
Yeah, very nice, very very nice. And they obviously came in the kill team box with the Vespid Stingwings, which I'm sure you're very excited about.
Yes, yeah, another. There we go, another nice update.
Another Tau release.
Yes,
Some
we've had a good year. Good year for
greedy.
Tau. Yeah, well, okay.
After all this time of not getting there's Unos. Right, okay. So those are our kind of top 3 40k each. We're now going to branch slightly away from 40k. Some quite far away, some less so. And I am going to go with straight from Scions into the Palanite Enforcer Taros Venator all-terrain vehicle. Again,
I mean, if you wanted to do Elysians, you could.
Yes, yes. Imagine how cool that would look. Imagine your Scions driving these. And the more I think about it, the more I think it needs to be done. I've seen it done. People have done it before, and there are also a whole bunch of 3D printed sculpts for Elysians. With Games Workshop having kind of retired the range, that's given created the space for 3D sculptors to offer alternatives. My only frustration with that is I like to stick to Games Workshop models because working with plastic is a lot easier, and they are gorgeous models. But then I'm like, okay, cool. If I'm going to 3D print some Elysian-esque heads, then I can't use that at a Games Workshop event. And then if I'm going to do that, then I might as well just 3D print Elysian-esque models rather than doing Scions. And then you're kind of not really doing the army that you had in your head, because you're like, I want to use these models because they're cool, and you're not actually using these models.
Yeah.
But anyway, by the by, the Tauros is very, very cool.
It's a good choice, and that's part of the Ash Waste for Necromunda, isn't it? Every gang is getting a vehicle. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you played much Necromunda, if any?
I haven't. I'm curious, but there isn't much of an appetite for it in my regular group.
Interesting. So it does strike me as something that I think you would be really, really into. Yeah. If I'm honest.
Well, it has the narrative and the role-playing elements, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the customization and the small bands. Like, that's exactly what someone said to me as well. I think it, like, obviously with my all-time favorite game ever being Mordheim, it's just kind of 40k Mordheim. But much like you, I don't have a local group that plays it. So if you're based in Berkshire, in the south of England, and you play Necromunda, drop me a line.
I mean, I'm 20 minutes outside Nottingham. I'm not living in a bad place for
absolutely
gaming. I'm sure I could put myself out there and find some Necromundans, but yeah, I haven't.
What is Max the squat light vehicle called? Is it the Sagator? The
Hecatron Land Fortress or something like that is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm thinking of the Sagittar.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I think that with maybe a tweaked cabin, because the cabin
looks very Lunar
the
Lander.
Canopy is very Lunar Lander, or the curvy bit. I think if you gave it Imperium weapons and gave it a much squarer kind of canopy, and maybe added like a turret, from like a Predator or a Chimera on top of it instead of that kind of dome, I think it would. It could be a Chimera replacement.
That'd be cool
for like an Elysian army.
Yeah, it would look suitably elite, wouldn't it? Yeah,
that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Very good idea.
This is dangerous. This podcast is dangerous for my bank balance. Right, tell me about your one of your three. Are we going in reverse order, or I mean, I haven't put these ones in order actually, so we're kind of beyond that point. But
I mean, these ones aren't as ranked, so I'll just pick. I'll pick from the hat. I'm going to go for
roll a D3.
Yeah, I think an absolute standout for me this year was the Claw Lord on Norbeast from the Skaven update for Skaven Refresh. Just a perfect HQ model, absolutely terrifying looking. Again, looks like it'd be so much fun to paint if I was ever going to do an AOS Skaven army. Just a real in a refresh and a release that has many good models. That one really stood out for me as an absolute cracker. So that's one of the ones I've picked.
That's interesting, and I will comment on something later.
Okay.
But the whole Skaven range is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And actually, the whole Skaven range epitomizes my love and hate for Warhammer models.
Okay.
They're all amazing. They're brilliant. But Skaven being a kind of Horde army, you've got to paint so many of them.
Yeah.
And having built a starter set for AOS and started painting the Skaven, I just gave up because there's
Really?
so many like straps and widgets and pouches.
Even
and
on the
stuff like
clan
that.
rat.
Yeah, it's just
Wow.
like for me, it's the variation of textures. And it works for Skaven. Like the models are wonderful, and of course they're going to have patchwork, cloaky things, and they're going to have their leather jerkins and not leather trousers, and then chainmail bits appearing underneath it where the kind of the cloth is ripped and things like that. But that just makes a really faffy model to paint.
Yeah, hard to batch, isn't it?
Yeah, so I kind of gave up on them, but yeah, just a really cool range overall.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. My second one is also going to be an Age of Sigmar model.
Okay.
And it's a model that I think could possibly be used as a 40k model with a bit of conversion. Like I'm just trying to think like what it could be used as, maybe like a Demon Prince or something. But it's Abraxia, Spear of the Everchosen. Now,
very good.
If I remember correctly, this was originally released as part of one of those was this released as like one of the end of Age of Sigmar 3 kind of campaign boxes, when you get like a hero and a couple of dudes, or it might have just been released as the kind of overall kind of Chaos Warrior Slaves of Darkness kind of release. Yeah, that's it. Here it is. Abraxia's Varan Spear from the Dawnbringers thing at the end of AOS 3. It just had the model itself and then 3 of the Varan Guard, which are like the elite Archaon's elite knights.
Yeah, who again a fantastic model.
Again, yeah, great models, but like I'm not painting those like that.
No,
but yeah, just a really badass kind of Chaos Warrior riding a really awesome dinosaur lizard demon thing. Like, yeah, what's not to like? Great centerpiece. And a sword on fire. I just love a sword on fire. There's a theme.
They do look great. They do look great, and they're fun to paint.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Chaos got some really good stuff, didn't they? The barbarian, the marauder upgrades,
Dark Oath, I think they're called.
Yeah, the Dark Oath. They were fantastic.
Yeah,
really cool. really solid. And that
those
Marauders
armies
needed a refresh, didn't they?
Oh, for sure. AOS armies just like AOS, I think, has the best model range of the systems.
Yeah.
It's just like I used to be massively into AOS, and again, I just don't have the local scene that plays.
Yeah,
and I think my brain can only do
one thing at a time. Can only
fixate one or two systems at a time. And at the moment, that system's heresy. The first system's heresy, and the second system's 40k.
Yeah,
I can't, playing AOS on top of that. It's just my tiny little brain's not got the space.
I know. You just don't put the pressure on yourself. Like, it will come. Stuff comes in waves, doesn't it? Your AOS time will come again, I'm sure.
In waves, like a good Trivium song. So, okay. What's your second choice?
Okay, I've gone for something very, very different. I think it was a really exciting return, and that's the Legions Imperialis ranges, just in general.
Oh, okay.
Just I love the tiny tanks. I think they look brilliant. I can remember Epic quite well from back in the day. How awesome that looked. I'd never played it, but as a kid, I used to love the boxes because you'd get, in your tiny little box for £5 or whatever it was, you'd get 15 tanks, and I just loved the excitement of that. And I think it's brilliantly done. Like, the detail on the tiny vehicles is amazing. I love the knights that are the size of a Primaris Intercessor. It's just very, very cool. And even the detail on the infantry is, really impressive. I like having seen a few Imperialis armies in the flesh painted up. I think they look absolutely brilliant, and it was a really good return to that scale of gaming. It'd be brilliant to see some other factions represented if they, did decide to expand that out into the 40k universe and move away from pure heresy. And I'm not sure they ever would, but
no, I don't think they will. Which is a real shame. I think I'd be a lot more excited. Like, ironically, as someone that's massively into heresy, I'm not that excited to play Legions Imperialis because I already play heresy. I don't necessarily need a smaller version of it. Whereas for 40k, there's enough. You could be like, okay, cool. I am not gonna, for example, my 40k Tyranids have sat on the shelf for ages and ages and ages, and I've never got around to doing them. I like the idea of them. I love the lore. I used to have a Tyranid army, yada, yada, yada. But I just I can't see myself painting them. Although, you know, we're due to do a Anphelion project episode in the near future, and so that might change after that. But you know, if let's say I'm not going to do Tyranids, then maybe I could do Tyranids for small 40k, you know, for epic size, or maybe I'll give up my Elder plans and then I'll do like an Eldari army for epic. But yeah, I don't know. I think the best thing about Warhammer in general these days is that there is something for everyone.
So many options. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
so many
finding the time to paint it all and play it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay,
talking
so-
of other game systems, my last pick is the Battle Standard Bearer on Royal Pegasus. But more broadly, I think it's just the old world stuff in general. It's a system that I have never played. I used to play fantasy like a little bit, you know, in my I suppose in the kind of 7th and 8th edition fantasy, just a dabble here or there. But really, it was kind of like 4th and 5th edition, like maybe 3rd, 4th, and 5th, when I was growing up as a child, where it really kind of captured my imagination. And I never really played it a huge amount, but I would read all the White Dwarfs that I'd get as on subscription as a kid. I would look at all these battle reports in these magazines, and I'd just look at all these like dragons. Like what's better to capture the imagination than dragons? Whereas the Stormcast dragons just leave me cold. Whereas the sort of old fantasy dragons, there's just so much in there. And so I suppose that leads me on to another question, Max. If you were to do one other game system outside of 40k, what would it be?
The one I'm most tempted by at the moment is Heresy, just because I hear so many good things about the game, and I love painting Space Marines.
And you're good at it as well. Like
I can churn them out. Right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You could have one of every Legion, Max.
I know I could, but I've never given AOS a good go, and I love fantasy. So I think if some of the armies are really tempting me as well, you know, the Cities of Sigmar in particular, I think look brilliant.
What a phenomenal range.
Yeah, I'd have to toss a coin between Heresy and AOS, I think.
Okay.
But AOS is very similar game to 40k, or am I completely misrepresenting that?
I think it's
40k with swords.
It's not quite as similar as perhaps you've made it sound, but it is still in line with the modern GW design ethos.
Yeah. Whereas Heresy feels like a departure, a different flavor, and
I mean, I would argue that 40k and AOS were the departure, and Heresy actually is more sticking to the original.
Yeah. From the modern style. I know
what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do an intro game of Heresy, Max, and I'll get you hooked just in time for the 3rd edition.
I think you could quite easily.
Pushing on an open door there. So the Bretonnian Battle Standard on Royal Pegasus. Like everyone loves a Pegasus, everyone loves Bretonnian Knights. You know what's not to like. What's your last choice?
Well, I'm a big fan of a dude with a gun. Just as, you know, your Bobby basic troops. And I think that the Solar Auxilia las rifle section is a box chock full of basic troops, dudes with guns. You know, they just look brilliant. Like masses and masses of painted infantry, I have a real soft spot for. And like you were saying, I think it's a really good plastic update to the range. I was watching Quarter Paint. We're doing a Solar Auxilia project. And they just look brilliant, you know, when they're ranked up, and, you know, tens and tens and tens of them. And I think that's a really, really, really solid kit.
Yeah, really interesting kit. And a very different vibe as well to a lot of the kind of 40k Astra Militara models out there. They're very unique.
Different. Yeah.
You'll be pleased to hear, Max. In fact, there's even a rule in one of the kind of Solar Auxilia, I suppose, like detachment equivalents, that if you put them all together in a line, base to base, they get better.
Oh, that's so satisfying.
So you could have, you know, like first rank fire, second rank fire, Zulu time.
Yeah.
Cool.
I can remember the 8th edition Guard Codex had something very similar for, I think it was the Vostrians when they were
Vostrians or Mordi and Iron Guard. I can't remember.
One of them. It was one of those two.
Yeah.
They had a rule where when they ranked up, they got an extra shot on their rapid fire or something like that. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Very cool, very cool. So we'll start you off with Heresy or the Legions, and then we'll easily get you into Solar Auxilia. And suddenly, bam! I think
it'd be easy sell.
Right. Okay. So after all that chat, all those releases that we've covered, is there one of your selection that stands out to you, or perhaps you've saved the model of the year?
My favourite kit of the year has been the Rampagers, I think.
Cool.
they're just, I look at my armies on my shelves, and they're such a unique unit for amongst everything else that I have. I think the posing is brilliant. They were so much fun to put together, and they're going to be a hell of a lot of fun to paint up as well. They're going to eat contrast paint with glee, and then a couple of highlights or a dry brush on it, and then it's just going to look brilliant. So I'm going to really enjoy painting them up as well. That's my favorite model unit of the year.
Nice.
How about you?
Mine is going back to the Skaven theme, and I said I'd refer to something later. I nearly put for one of my top 3 non-40k releases was just like the whole Skaven range, and I suppose this really represents that. Here is that this model is, I think it's one of the best Age of Sigmar models they've done. My all-time favorite is probably Alariel, but this model is I would argue one of the best Age of Sigmar models I've seen. It's like a kind of demon prince sized rat dude. Vizic Scour, prophet of the horned rat, and he's a vermin lord. He's got this kind of amazing like predatory pose as he's kind of stepping over a Age of Sigmar equivalent of a tactical rock. He's got this cool staff. The staff's got a couple of rats on top of it.
One of the best heads of any.
Yeah. Oh, those
monster.
horns. He's kind of got like this Diablo-esque kind of devil horn thing.
Diablo, yeah, very Diablo, very Baphomet, isn't it? It's very cool.
And he's covered in rats as well.
Yeah, lots of
all these
rats.
little rats everywhere.
Rats
love
for
it.
days.
Rats for days, and a tiny little bell on the end of his tail. But yeah, just a really cool model. And if I was getting into Age of Sigmar, would I do Skaven? I don't think I would, because again, I don't think I could do that model justice. There's just too much going on.
I think we'll see some beautifully painted examples of that at the Golden Demons next year.
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. That is a true centipede competition worthy model. It's just that's not me. That's not how I paint.
No. I would not do it justice, but
I'll just dry brush some Seraphon dinosaurs. That's kind of my bag. So there we go. That's our kind of favorite releases. But what about yourself, like hobby wise, Max? Any specific hobby highlights that stand out for you?
Yeah, I can give you one. This time last year, rummaging through, there's an outdoor shop in the town that I live, and it has one of those starter Games Workshop stands in it as well. It sells
the little black racks.
Yeah, exactly.
Some intercessors and 2 paints. And a white dwarf from 7 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. But at the bottom of the rack, the guy also seems to get in just some random stuff every now and again. I don't know from where. I've never quizzed him on his purchasing strategies or anything. But just rummaging through that rack one day, there was the Imperial Fist Christmas box from a couple of years ago. The one that had the heavy intercessors in it, aggressors, Tor Garridan. It was like a Gravis themed starter force. And I picked it up. I did a test model, kind of this time last year. Absolutely loved it. Like that Imperial Fist contrast is, oh my gosh, what a joy to use that paint is. It's just beautiful. But over the course of this year, I've got a 2K Imperial Fist army completely finished. So we're talking 4 vehicles, 3 Gladiator Lancers and a Repulsor, and then 50 infantry models, including 3 characters. All chipped up, transfers, the lot, and it's just sat there on my hobby shelves, on my army shelves, looking glorious and yellow. And from start to finish, it was just an absolute joy to work on. I've tried out a few new recipes on it. I used some, rather than like an Agrax wash or whatever, I used a bit of a mix of a few hobby products with some mediums and. It's called marine juice is the recipe. If anyone wants to Google it and look it up, there's some good guides on YouTube, but it just kind of flows into the recesses a little better. I had some real fun with chipping on it. And yeah, I just really, really pleased. It's a tight little force. Looking forward to adding more to it later, but to get that sort of done and dusted in a year was really, really satisfying.
That's really interesting as well, because you said it was such a satisfying army to paint, but it was yellow.
Yeah.
And yellow is often cited as a very difficult colour to paint. Did you use an airbrush, or did you use like a spray can or anything like that?
No, it was that Imperial Fist contrast. Honestly, it is such a game changer. Just prime like a bone colour. I think I used Wraithbone Rattlecan from GW, and then literally the biggest brush you have, just slop it in the Imperial fists, literally like dripping off the end of the brush, just slop, slop, slop all over the model, and it just, in one coat, it just creates this vibrant, beautiful, punchy yellow in absolutely no time at all. And just that process of going from primed model to beautiful yellow in the space of 25 seconds per model was, oh gosh, it was so much fun. Just sat there blasting through units, and that's what made that army possible for me, was that Imperial Fist contrast. It's such a great paint. I cannot recommend it enough.
That's really interesting, because I found the way I approached painting after I attended the Medas Miniatures Kratos course was exactly that. I was like, right, this is really the sort of the way the application of the techniques was taught really helped, I suppose, like up my painting game. And it sounds like we're in a similar space there. Is once you've worked out a process that works, it's really easy to smash out models, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've for that particular army, I've unlocked something that I know I enjoy. It's a scheme I know I love. It's super quick, and for a gaming piece, for a gaming army, it looks brilliant because that yellow just punches off the table. It's such a fun, it was such a fun army to work on. I had an absolute blast creating that one.
Amazing.
So yes, your hobby highlight, Dan.
I was actually going to say something very similar, which is my hobby highlight was getting my Solar Auxilia tank army done.
Yeah.
So I attended a one-day Horus Heresy event, and it was like a Solar Auxilia only event, because they're not hugely competitive. They just die in droves, because a lot of them have got like a 5-up save, and AP works differently in Heresy. So you might have AP 5, and that means it ignores anything. Ignores a 5-up or a 6-up save.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Rather than like the kind of -1 or -2 of Rend or AP that 40k has. So you don't tend to see many Solar Auxiliary armies in Heresy events, like in general. Maybe like every event will have like 1 or 2, but like a 20 to 30 person event. But this event was, it's like only Solar. And as with all of my, hobby deadlines, I had kind of left it slightly too late, because, well, it wasn't that I left it too late per se. It's because I had planned it to take, I suppose, 2 weeks, and then suddenly work were like, oh, actually, could you just go abroad for that week? And it was
but your timing off.
Yeah, I was like, oh, right, I thought I had 2 weeks, including 2 weekends. And they were like, well, we want you to fly out on the weekend and be there for Monday through Friday and then fly back on the weekend. And I was like, oh, so I've gone from 2 weeks, including 2 weekends, to 1 week and no weekends. And then, I didn't get back to like the Monday or something. So I lost all that time. And I was talking to a friend who was going, and I was just like, am I going to be able to get it done? Am I going to have to drop out? And the tickets weren't super expensive, and the hotel was cancelable. So there was a genuine kind of.
There was you did have an out.
Yeah, I had a get out of jail free card, and I thought, no, sod it, let's do it. And actually, my friend that I was going with was like, no, I'm gonna try and get he was up against Stellan as well. And he's like, I'm gonna try and get it done. And actually, it was him saying that was like, all right, cool. If he's doing it, we're sharing a hotel. I don't want to. I've said I'd drive us, so I don't want to like let him down by being like, "Oh, I'm not going to go." By the way, you can drive yourself now. So I kind of used that social pressure, the peer pressure, to get the army done, and I got it done in 3 days.
That's top effort.
2,000 points of tanks done.
Yeah,
and it was applying all those techniques that I was talking about.
I was going to say, you have absolutely nailed your vehicle painting this year, haven't you? You've got such a good technique for it now, and for highly impactful gaming pieces, they just look fantastic. Like some of the photos you were posting from Warhammer World the other day with the event that you were at, the meetup you had. Gosh, those tanks, like in that scenery, in that terrain, they just look brilliant. So
thanks, man.
Well done.
No, my kind of go-to is like pick a really, really offensively bright color and paint your army that color.
Yeah, dirty it down and
exactly.
Yeah.
Pick an obnoxious color. Dirty it down with weathering, so it's not too over the top, but make sure it's still a little bit over the top. And like I say I finished the army. I've still got some weathering to do. I've still got oil washes to do, but it was kind of done enough to be tabletop, and it doesn't look unfinished. And actually, it looks a hell of a lot more finished than some armies I've seen at events.
Yeah, no, there you go. What top effort. I think that's a very valid highlight.
Oh, no, yours was valid too. Yours was more valid. Anyway, right. Hobby resolutions and predictions. Let's move on. We've looked back at the previous year. That is now done. we're now looking forward to 2025. The questions we asked each other were, was there a hobby resolution, like a kind of conceptual or an ethos thing that
Yep.
you're kind of taking into 2025, as well as some tangible projects as well?
Okay.
Go for it.
The success I've had this year has been where I've been able to not dedicate hours and hours per night to hobbying, but everything's just been out on my desk. You know, I've got a permanent setup. I'm lucky enough to have a permanent setup, and it's out and it's ready to go. And I've just been able to go little and often. Like, even if it's just sitting down for 20 minutes once my kid's in bed and painting the gold trim on 2 infantry models. That's 20 minutes over the course of 3 weeks, 4 or 5 times a week. It adds up and stuff gets finished. So my mantra to continue the kind of progress that I want to make, because I've got some big projects on the go for next year, is just that little and often. Like, I don't have to sit there for hours and hours and hours, but so long as I'm consistently doing 20 minutes, half an hour here and there, I'm gonna get through the projects that I want to do this year. So yes, little and often is my resolution for 2025.
Like it. Yeah, I think that's a really useful way to approach the hobby, is not try and do, like, having just said, oh yeah, my hobby highlight was painting a whole army in 3 days. It's like, you don't have to do that. I think I might take a little leaf out of your book there, Max. I might try and do a little bit of little and often too, because it's stressful. It's stressful living the life the way I do.
The cram painter.
The cram. I mean, painter, exam reviser when I was a kid. Everything. It's always been my little ADHD way of doing things, but I would like to perhaps do things a little bit more.
I'm a real grinder.
You're a bit of a goody two shoes there, Max.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
It's slightly different in that sense. So I suppose that's kind of my my resolution, my ethos I want to take into 2024 is I want to be a little bit more intentional with my hobbying, rather than leaving things to the last minute and rushing and being forced to cut corners because I have left it to the last minute. I kind of want to, I think it's drawing on your little and often, but it's also, okay, right. So instead of painting up a brand new army for this event that's coming up, why don't you say to yourself, I'm going to take an existing army and I'm not going to add anything to it. Great. That's then given you space to do a little bit here and there, build a Blood Angels Intercessor squad, or, just, okay, cool. You've got an hour to an evening, like, let's just do some highlights on one Marine. Like, that's okay. And that way, I think I'll start to push the quality of my models slightly higher, because a lot of my models, for example, my infantry in my Alpha Legion 30k army, they're very, very basic. So basic. Like, they don't even have transfers on their shoulders. And I think that kind of detracts from the overall army.
Yeah. So are you going to have, when you say purposeful, are you going to sit down with a plan, or is it just more of the mindset that when you begin whatever it is you might start, you will do it with a more intent? Like,
that's an interesting question, Max.
You don't strike me as I'm gonna do a calendar with paint this unit then, and I don't think that's what you mean, is it, when you say
no? That's certainly not me. That's definitely not me. And actually, lots of people are like that. Lots of people work well off lists and structure like that. I do tend to approach things a little bit more chaotically. I think what I mean is giving myself more time to do hobby, rather than, I might go into my hobby room, sit down, get my phone out to find a YouTube video to watch or something, or even get it out to put an audiobook on. And then because my phone's in my hand, I might look on Instagram for a little bit. And then suddenly 3 hours later, I've just scrolled through reels. And I'm like, where's my hobby time gone? So I think I just want to be a little bit more present.
Yeah.
A little bit more mindful and demure with my hobby.
Fair enough. I think yeah, brilliant. I think that's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah, there we go. And what about hobby projects, Max? So when you're going to be doing little and often, what hobby projects will you be working on?
I've got 3 things, 3 kind of broad things I want to achieve. I've got a box full of that boarding action terrain, and I'm really keen to give boarding action a proper go this year. I picked up the boarding action compendium book that was released fairly recently, and my God, is that a good book? Like, it's absolutely stacked full of rules. There's over 15 missions in there. There is rules for every single faction in there. It's such a complete book. It's brilliant, and it looks really good fun. So I want to get the terrain painted up, nice and simple, and get some boarding action games going. And sort of tied to that, I'd love to do a boarding action specific army that's, quite different from some of the other forces that I have. I haven't decided what faction that should be yet, but maybe one that I've never played with before, maybe Eldar would be a good shout for that. So that's hobby project number 1, and 2, the force and the actual terrain itself, because believe me, the terrain is a big enough project. And then for my final thing I want to get done this year is I have a big Custodes army finished. I have a big I have my 2K Imperial Fists army finished, and then my other forces are in a kind of mixed state of completion. So what I also want to do is get my remaining armies up to 2,000 points painted. So that would be the Kroot, which is a monster task. There's many, many, many models to paint there. My Battlesuit army for my Tau, so my Farsight Enclaves, and then my Night Lords. My Night Lords are pretty close, to be honest. I should be able to, I might even wrap that up before the end of the year, to be quite honest. So the remaining forces, getting them up to 2k points painted is the other big thing that I'd like to achieve in 2025.
That's very cool. That's a lot to do.
It is, yeah, but it's well within me. I think it's kind of my wheelhouse is the term, isn't it? Yeah, it's definitely in my wheelhouse. It plays to my strengths.
In what sense?
Batching, lots of repetitive painting. I really enjoy that. I love grinding out lots and lots of units. So I think they are projects that play to my strengths. I'm not looking to push the boundaries of my painting quality or learn any new techniques or anything like that. I just want to get good battle ready models on the table. That's what really motivates me. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I like that.
Okay, so what about you? What's big plans for 2025?
Big plans. So I want to do more 40k.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely have been on a massive 30k I suppose like surge this year, and that's been really amazing. I've attended quite a few events. I've even got some more events lined up, including the Throne of Skulls at Warhammer Bold in, I want to say, like late January or maybe early February.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I will do 40k events, although the grand narrative did look very interesting. I think I would like to play more 40k locally with friends. And I think that's what's kind of put me off playing 40k so much, is that when you look at, I suppose, like the meta and the events and people kind of taking such tunes lists, because that's not necessarily how I approach 40k, it's easy to kind of just get a bit like disillusioned with it.
Yeah, I get that.
I'd be like, the constantly changing meta, everything needs to be competitive and things like that.
There's another attachment, and
there's a new detachment. I don't really know what it does. Like, what if I, and if I'm going to pay, £50 to £100 for a ticket, and then £100 to £150 for accommodation for a couple of nights, and meals out, all that stuff. Like a tournament, a whole weekend tournament is
adds up.
It's a chunk of money.
Yeah,
unless
sure.
you're driving to a local one day or something.
Yeah.
So I'd like to play more 40k, and I'd like to paint more 40k. 40k is such an amazing like narrative system around it. The lore that we're always talking about, the models, and when we do our Codex reviews, even then we're kind of focused on like what narrative things are cool and how to bring a detachment to life on the tabletop. And I think that's what I want to do. That's how I want to play 40k. And I've recently started going to a local store called the Cryptic Cabin in Bracknell. They've also they've also just opened one up in Bristol as their second store. But yeah, like there's a cool bunch of people there. I'm in like a WhatsApp community group, and I'm just excited to play more Warhammer.
Play some 40k, make some new friends. Sounds good.
Exactly. So I think I'm going to start with my Blood Angels.
Yeah,
and
great.
And also do a little bit of a consolidation and kind of work out what projects I want to do, because there's so much on the horizon that looks amazing. I think I need to cull some existing projects. So I think that's my second task for the year is cull some existing projects. I feel like I've said that on the majority of my year review episodes.
Look, I think the tidy up of your projects as well will go well with your resolution to hobby with more purpose. I think it will create some good headspace for you to really kind of knuckle down on the stuff that you want to work on. because you won't. I know how you think. I guess it's a bit of a weight on your shoulders, right? All this stuff that you're just not touching, and I can imagine gets to you a bit. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think that will help with your wider hobby goals for the year.
Yeah, and then I suppose like one final one is do another 30k Legion. So I've got that.
Ooh, yeah.
I've got
okay.
that event lined up in late January,
Loyalist
February.
or traitor?
It's difficult. So I've got the army assembled. It's
Yeah.
an armored spearhead. I've got like loads of tanks built. I just need to decide what colour to paint them. And
Okay.
there's kind of rumours of 30k third edition for next year at some point. So
Mhm.
I think going back to what you're saying about like the hobby, projects on the back burner kind of give me a bit of stress. I'm in a similar space here because I'm like, well, Night Lords would be very, very cool because the rules are very, very strong. And I'm going to the first event in late January is a Threaded Skull, so it's a chilled out one. But I also am then going to the SN 30k GT in Gibraltar in like
Ooh, yeah,
March or April or
yeah.
something like that. And that is a competitive event. It's very rare that 30k events are competitive. Often they are more narrative, whereas this is you can bring the filth. And Night Lords would
Looks like
be
a brilliant event as well. So yeah,
well. So there's two
to.
versions. There's SN No Retreat, which is their kind of like with the one that all the influencers go to, and that thing. But then SNGT is just like an all anyone can go.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, it should be really cool. And like 30k, the hobby standard is always phenomenal.
Mhm.
The majority of people really bring it. It's very rare that you see an army that's
Someone's phoned it in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like occasionally you see someone that's kind of obviously just like run out of time and like their army isn't like some of the elements aren't necessarily finished. But it's very rare that
They've
you see
painted a whole tank army in 3 days, that kind of thing.
yeah, some scoundrel like that, right? So yeah, Night Lords would be the competitive choice. I think Iron Warriors would be the thematic choice.
Yeah.
But I think they might be a bit boring to paint.
A lot of silver.
A lot of silver, yeah. And then Ultramarines could possibly be I suppose
Easy.
like the cool choice
You're
that I'd
talking
like to
to me
do.
there.
Yeah, Ultramarines Max. There we go.
Yeah.
But I've just, my Alpha Legion are blue. Do I really want to paint another blue army? So
Hey, yellow looks good. Just saying.
yeah. I'm not. No, not Imperial. They're not for me. Imperial Fists.
Fair enough.
But yeah, maybe that's a conversation for another day. We could talk about the various different colours. But yeah, so there we go. So finishing up, what are you most looking forward to?
I'm very, very excited about the Emperor's Children.
Oh yes,
Can't wait to see those. I have a feeling they're going to be phenomenal, and hopefully joined by their Primarch as well. It'd be brilliant to see Fulgrim come back. So I'm very.
Yeah. I mean, the Forge World one was phenomenal, wasn't it?
What a tease that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So very excited about them. And on the Primarch theme, I think would be very good to get another loyalist back as well to even up the scales. Because if we reckon Fulgrim's coming back,
who do you think would be a good?
Oh, I think Russ could be really good. Lehman Russ coming back with a bit of an update to some of the Space Wolves models and units.
That would be a cool way to finish 10th edition, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah, it would. But I'd love to.
Interesting.
Selfishly, I think Dawn would be quite cool. But we've already got Gilliman, haven't we? He's a bit.
Yeah, I feel like
Dawn and Gilliman is.
Yeah, we don't need another.
We don't need another nerd.
Stuck-up patrician guy. Yeah.
No. Let's get a angry Wolfman instead, or the Khan. That'd be awesome too. But yeah, another loyalist would be very good because gosh, if the Lionel Johnson model's anything to go by, then it could be.
Yeah, that's such a cool model.
Banger, couldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. How about you? What are you most looking forward to or hoping for next year?
So I think Heresy 3 would be really cool. Third edition Heresy would be very cool. Looking forward to that. It would also. With the new edition always comes interesting ways to play existing armies and opportunities to create new armies, of course. We've seen some amazing Krieg models and some amazing Eldari models. So I'm probably looking forward to those two the most. And I think that's why I'm kind of umming and ahhing about existing projects, because I'm like, I would love to do a Krieg army and I would love to do an Eldari army. Though I've only got a certain amount of time. What am I not going to do?
Yeah.
Do I sell my Orcs? Do I sell my Tyranids? Do I maybe tune down the Space Marines a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
not do as many Blood Angels. I don't know. It's there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Options.
So many options.
But I think
Excellent.
as a little bit of a teaser for what's coming next, I think I'm also excited for the podcast because we've had a chat, we've talked about maybe taking things in a slightly different direction. Still be very much kind of narrative focused, but we want to visit parts of the 41st millennium that aren't tied in with Codex releases. So we want to revisit like Imperial armor books. We want to revisit kind of old campaign books and sections of the lore that isn't necessarily tied to a release schedule. So you can look forward to 2025, some more consistent content and some more varied content. But of course, when codexes come out, we'll endeavor to do a review of them. But the reviews might look slightly different. We might structure them in a slightly different way if that kind of fits with us. We'll just kind of have a think about how we do that. But actually, I do quite like the kind of lore discussions followed by a little detachment thing, so that might stay the same, but yeah, we'll see. So kind of watch this space, and I've started to upload all the episodes to YouTube as well these days and try and potentially get some more visual things, because at the moment that's just the audio podcast with like a moving an audiogram, but might try and do some more visual stuff, especially if we do like campaign book reviews of like old campaign books.
Yeah. Some amazing artwork and maps and stuff in there, isn't there? It'd be good to.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much stuff on the Warhammer Vault, so it'd be a shame not to draw on that resource.
Quite a treasure trove.
Absolutely, indeed. A true Pandorax box, if you will. That is from Apocalypse Warzone Pandorax, Max, which I'm sure you remember with fond memories. So yeah, there we go. That's our little review of 2024 and what we're looking forward to 2025. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what's your mini of the year for 2024, and what are you looking forward to the most? Yeah, so pop it down in the YouTube comments or stick it on the comments on our Instagram kind of posts or whatever for this episode. Tell us what your favorite model was for this year, and tell us what you're looking forward to the most doing hobby-wise for next year. Until next time, keep calm and crusade on.